Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday Roast. And we have some special guests with us this morning. I'm all over the place. We have David McGuinness, and we have Big Maj Studios. And my wonderful co-host, Alex from Political X. Before we begin, maybe we can do a little bit of an introduction. Alex, do you want to go first?
Hi, I'm Alex. I run a YouTube channel called Political X. I'm an author, historian, and teach a little bit of politics as well on the side when I can. And over to Big Maj. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Big Maj Studios. You should know me by now. I think it's my third appearance here. Me and Bowler Hatman, first episode. We were out here. As you can see, it's very dark. I've tried to fix it. I have a light just next to me, but the software issue. So I look like a character who's not been unlocked. So good luck with that, guys. Best of luck with that.
We're working to unlock you.
Yeah, you got to pay. It's DLC. You guys got to pay money.
Do you accept Bitcoin?
Maybe.
Let's not go there. David McGuinness, can you tell us about yourself and your channel?
Yep, I'm David McGuinness. David Milligan and I run the Two Davies YouTube channel. I also do a program called IndyTruck Davy, where I used to broadcast news reviews from a truck cab. I now do it from the house because I work in the evenings during my program goes out at 11 in the morning. But I'm basically a political commentator.
That's
awesome.
Great. Fantastic.
You got a lot to comment about with everything going on at the moment.
Hey, Alex, I've sent you that email, mate.
What's your...
No, he sent you.
What's your thoughts on... Okay. Go on, Max.
Okay. Sorry, go on. What's your thoughts on what's happening at the moment in Scotland with the SNP and Nicola Sturgeon?
Well, Nicola was basically hounded out of office actually because we threats to her and her family, believe it or not. It's not really public, but there's a fair lot of people just went to jail for death threats to the First Minister. But when they start threatening our family, then, you've got to reflect and say, is this really worth it? Especially when it gets to death threats. So she decided the political discourse is not something that she wants to be in the front of anymore. So she stepped back to become a backbencher. She'll continue to work in things that are of her interest, like children in care. That's a big thing she's championed over the time she's been in office.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, it seems that a lot of the female social media commentators and politicians get it a little bit more in the neck than the men. That's not to say that some of the men don't get it in the neck. But there's this added sexism that's been thrown towards them, the fact they're getting death threats. I mean, it shows how polarised everything is in the UK.
Yep, here in Scotland, there's doing the constitutional lines. In England, there's no Brexit. And it's deliberate. It's been created that way, we don't accept with the media.
Do you see there being someone that's up to the task of replacing Nicola?
There's many talented people in the SNP in Holyrood. Holmes is very talented. He's just turned the NHS around from a terrible condition. Whereas... if you don't mind. We have now got to a situation where from long waiting lists at A&E, we're now back up at doing better than what England was pre-pandemic.
We were speaking to Random Scottish History about that, and we were wondering whether or not it'd be quicker to take a train up to Scotland and get seen in A&E than it would be if you got injured in London.
Well, it's to be honest with you, I'm going to tell you a true story, and it's a shame the other Davy's not here because this is true. Davy took no well when him and I were doing it in Bristol. Travels for work, and I was helping him. I was after truck driving job, and he needed somebody to help him run lines and that because he's a communication engineer. He took no well and quite seriously no well, and I popped into the local hospital in Bristol to find that the A&E waiting times, this is pre-pandemic.
I think David's battery's just run out. That is some bad timing. Anyway, David hopefully will be back in a minute. Big Maj, what are your thoughts on what's going on in Scotland and the NHS? And I mean, it's interesting to see that the NHS stats have come out because on Question Time this week, Robert Jenrick, that oh so honest a person, as talking about how the waiting times on the NHS were awful in Scotland. What are your sort of views on Nicola Sturgeon leaving? And
can I just before Big Maj jumps in, I just want to remind everyone we're live, and if you'd like to hit us with a super chat, we'll attempt to. If you have any questions for our guests, we'll read them out on the stream today. We've lost Davy, so we'll try and get him back. Sorry, Big Maj, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, legacy for a politician has been around for a while. Is a difficult question. I think she dodged 2 questions on education. I did try and find out more about what's going on in Scotland with education, and I'll probably get beaten up in comments about it, which is fine. It's not something, it's a bit difficult. It's a bit tricky to find information on it. She did mention they talked about her goals and attainment levels. She didn't reach it, which, to be fair, is going to be difficult given the way the Tories have funded the schools and things like that. Like the education in England it's not looking too good.
That's
right
awful.
Now. Yeah, it's like, you got 30 plus kids in the class. So if she didn't reach her attainment levels, then I'm not surprised, given that context. But, the fact that the NHS in Scotland is doing better is tremendous. It shows you that, parts of their organisation is good. The SNP can do great things there. Plus the fact that they don't have nurses strikes, I think, or the nurses have not gone on strike yet over pay, like they have in England. So at least then they've got extra nurses on wards rather than on strike, which is what you want to see, really. No one wants to see healthcare professionals go on strike. But I think she's left a decent legacy. She's kind of kept a party that's united, that might be a bit divided. But the one key thing is independence. She got a coalition with the Green Party as well. I just think the problem will always be with the SNP and with the devolved governments of how much is it, your failure versus how much is it a Westminster failure of, if they gave you more money, what could you do with it? If you see what I'm saying? And that's kind of one of the key issues that devolution has, I think, in the UK, where it's very hard to know where the lines are for failure in some places, because funding is a big issue. If you look at what the Tory government have done when it comes to funding, it's not great across the board. And Genric's just a prat, I'll be honest, because the English NHS levels are worse than the Scottish ones. So then, it's like when Keir Starmer was like, Sturgeon should focus on the NHS. I'm like, yeah, she has, mate, and she's done a better job than this lot in charge. They've got free prescriptions over there. We don't, so it's clearly they're doing things a lot better than we are in some regards. So yeah, I think she left a decent legacy behind, and I think her successor, depending on who it is, might have trouble keeping the party united. Depending on, because I've already read some things about some of the people in the race, and it's not. Some of them aren't great. Some of them, I'm sure they'll be good, but I haven't seen enough of them. I've only watched the odd interview with someone like Hamza Yousaf or the odd interview with some of the other SNP members. So it's hard to know how well they'll do at uniting a party, because that's difficult. That's really difficult to unite a divided party. And that's going to be a challenge, I think, for the next person as well to keep things going. So I think she's done a good job, maybe even a great job. I'll have to look more specifically, but I wouldn't say it's been bad. That'd be kind of my analysis of it. Good, maybe great, not bad. Definitely not bad.
Max?
I'd like to bring Davy back in because he's back with us.
Yeah,
again.
I am sorry about that.
but I
made a short power outage here. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Now, I'll go back to what I was saying. We've talked about I was saying about maybe quicker getting on a train to London to get treatment in Scotland. And I was going to tell you about a journey from Bristol to Glasgow to save a friend's life, because the waiting hours, and this was 2018, the waiting hours in Bristol was 8 hours in A&E. So it was quicker to put David in the car and drive up to the Queen Elizabeth in Glasgow than what it was to wait in A&E in Bristol.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Yeah, no, I mean, because we were joking about it in a previous episode in this season, just the idea and the thought of jumping on a train and flying all the way up there. We've just had a super chat as well, Max.
Hey. You want to read it
out? It's from Fearless Wolf. Thank you. I was in Inverclyde. I really hope I got that pronunciation correct. Dave, you better have me on this if I got this right. Inverclyde for a month. Got out last Monday and can confirm by seeing a doctor getting a CT scan and operation was done in 5 hours, even when A&E was busy. That's pretty quick for a CT scan as well. I mean, wow. I guess
During the pandemic,
on a Monday it's always a bit quiet though, isn't it? Like that's the sort of day that you would want to go into A&E if you wanted to be seen quickly.
during the pandemic, when services weren't really running properly, my wife had a cancer scare. She had all tests in one day. A lot, CT scan, lumbar puncture, X-rays, everything on one day. Blood works, everything. You know, and that was at the height of the pandemic when the hospitals were overwhelmed.
It wasn't as bad, was it, up in Scotland with the pandemic?
Well, per capita.
But then there were interesting things with that as well, which I found things that the SNP never brought up. We clearly had a herd immunity policy. It was said repeatedly by both ministers and the what's his name, guy with glasses, English, was coming out and saying about the pandemic. Chris Whitty. Chris Whitty, on 2 occasions, one on the BBC and one somewhere else, came out and said, we're following a policy of herd immunity. Now, part of that seemed to be connected to leaving all the airports open and allowing people just to flood into the country. Like we had millions. We even had traffic control experts or aviation experts on Good Morning Britain going, I don't know what Robert Jenrick, who was in charge at the time, was doing. He just left it open, didn't do anything with it, didn't do any checks, and seemed to have just completely wasted any opportunity to restrict the number of people coming in. Now you can debate as to whether or not that was good. We can debate about herd immunity. But for Scotland, you've got no choice. You have no say in any way, shape or form what took place in a herd immunity situation. If the government wants herd immunity, you have to accept it, regardless of whether or not your ministers or your parliament are interested in having that same policy.
That's because border control is centralised. Border control is centralised. There's nothing we can do about it. And whereas we can close down our borders for animal health welfare reasons, when it comes to human health and welfare reasons, we can't close our borders.
No. And that's interesting because that should be a big thing. Max, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask David if he knows a doctor called Donald McCuskell. He's the CEO of Scottish Care, and he came out. He was talking recently on BBC Scotland where he was talking about how there's a big problem in social care because of Brexit, because in the past a lot of the small communities used to rely on workers from abroad, and now since Brexit they like a lot of social care in Scotland is how can I say it? It's not run by large companies. It's run by small operations, and they don't have the money to pay for the visas to bring people in, because it costs about £3,000 to bring somebody in.
To bring them in from out with the EU, whereas when we were in the EU, we had a lot of Eastern European people working in social care. Now, when we talk about social care in England and the UK, it's different per nation. For example, here in Scotland, you're guaranteed social care and home care free of charge, no matter what age you are or what your illness is. But that's starting to suffer now because we don't have access to people to work in that sector.
And it's impossible.
So there's no selling your house up here so you can pay for social care.
We've got...
Sorry, Al.
It's interesting as well because we've got a shortfall of 350,000 workers. That's the claim coming out of the government. So we need 350,000, which is why I assume they're hammering all the people taking, or they're going to hammer all the people who are on benefits. But when you break down those numbers, I think 1.2 million of those people that are on that 6 million list are pensioners. Then I think 800,000 are carers. They have to look after someone. And that's because the government haven't got any support mechanism within social services that's adequate to help. Plus, as you pointed out, there are people out in the sticks who can't necessarily find anyone to come over. So they have to go and support and look after their family. And then on top of that, you've got people who are disabled, who I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's about 1 million of that 6 million are on disability benefits. So what I think the government is trying to do is try and get 350,000 people back into work out of that group. So you want the disabled and carers to somehow drop what they're doing and come back into the workforce. Or
No,
Alex,
actually,
you know the job vacancies number. It's 1.5 million. The 330,000 is the number of EU workers that have left.
It's 1.5 million.
It's 1.5. It's 1.5 million. Yeah, the 330,000 is the number of EU workers that have left. Because it was in the FT a while ago. Because I got mad at them for saying, "Oh, these are all low skilled jobs." I'm like, if you think construction's a low skilled job, you're a moron. You know, you've sat in an office too long. Because I tell you what, man, like I said, you know, so these guys did my kitchen, right? I was watching these guys. I'm like, fucking hell, if I did this, I'd be dead. Like, I'm getting electrocuted, or there's a multitude of ways I'm going here, a multitude of ways. I have no idea what these men are up to, but you know that's what I mean. Like, you know, it's 330,000, I think, is the EU number, and 1.5 million, according to Statista, is the vacancies number right now. So I think you're right. They are going to push people from benefits into these sorts of roles. But the problem is some of these are, you know, extremely skilled jobs, and you know, people like, you know, when you talk about hospitality, people are like, oh, it's low skilled. I'm like, you tell like a chef they're low skilled, they will whack you with a frying pan. Like that shit is difficult. You will get hit.
Yeah, but also, for example, like they'll say, you know, making beds is an unskilled. Yeah, but I can make a bed more or less, but I can't make 10 beds in an hour. That's the difference. It's, you know, it's not just about the entire approach to this is completely wrong. But also they're talking about giving people 2 weeks training courses, like to do all of these jobs. and who's going to provide the training?
That's as mad as when they were talking about taking reversing out of the driving courses so they can get more people heavy goods driving. You know, that's just mental.
Do you remember when Teresa Coffey's like, I gave out what's it called, antibiotics to people that I, you know, and I'm like, you're not a medical professional. What's wrong with you? You know, that's what's going to happen now.
She has a doctorate in something.
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same. It's a doctorate, you know. I wouldn't go to, hey, Teresa, I've got a pain in my elbow. Can you help me? Can you fix it, please? No, that's not why you go to people with a PhD. That's the wrong kind of doctor. No one on a plane, you know, it's the old joke, isn't it? It's like someone's like on a plane, so this man's dying. Is there a doctor on the plane? And he's like, I have a PhD. He's like, get out.
I have a PhD in literature.
I assume this 350,000 is in, like, sorry, 1.5 million that they want to get out of the 6 million that are on benefits. I mean, this wouldn't be an issue if we were in the EU, would it? Because you just go straight into Europe.
Yeah,
there's a bigger problem here, which we can sort of diverge into, which is the whole idea of Brexit is to be a global player, but also you're under the control of global markets. I'm making a prediction in about 10 to 20 years, we're going to see China collapse because of their one-child policy. They're about 100 million people short, and we're going to be susceptible to that. What's that, David?
They scrapped the one-child policy 8 years ago.
Yeah, but the effect started in the 1980s. Yes, so you've literally gone from, in the 1980s, an urbanization program, getting people from the farms where they had 7 kids into the urban cities, and then the next generation having 1. So how do you have 1 child and a male? That's another thing. There's a cultural thing of, if it's a girl, we don't particularly want it. Not always, but there was a cultural impact within that. So how do you go from a policy? Because like for us, we've had a gradual decline in our, and this is why we've got a problem. We've got a gradual decline in our population, which is down to, I think, 1.45 or 1.8 kids per family. So we're not even replacing ourselves, which is why you need immigration. And China's got this problem, but on a massive scale in a shorter period of time. Ours is gradual. Same with the United States. With China, it's in a generation that they flipped this. And this is the reason why it's now cheaper to get products from Mexico than it is from China. Because Mexico haven't had this issue. China has. And that's why wages have increased, I think, 14-fold in China. That's why we don't generally buy products from there. I mean, there are other problems as well with China. But the point is, I could see that being a global collapse within 10 to 25 years, easily. And then that comes back on us. Because where do we get most of our products from? We get it from Asia. Taiwan is another problem with the microchips. So I'm sort of looking at this and going, this is a global problem. Britain's actually closed itself off. And going back to what you were saying, why we've got staff shortages, we aren't replacing the population.
It's not just down to numbers either. It's down to skills as well, like, and expertise. Like you need to run a restaurant or to be front of house, it requires skills and training. Like you have to know how to deal with people, and that takes time. If you want to be like a head waiter, that takes time, and it's all of these kind of roles as well that are short on the shortage list. It's because of the narrative of it's low skilled. Is like if you're the head waiter of a restaurant, I mean, that's a massive skill. Like there's so much you need to know in that role. A head chef, even a sous chef, there's so much you need to know in these roles. And so it's the narrative of these are easy to replace roles, and we just got to get people off unemployment. It's a myth. Like it takes years to get the qualifications to actually become a plumber or an electrician or any of these jobs, and we need those a lot now because house building in this country is a joke. And
isn't this an issue with the Eton ethos of looking at that type of work and looking down on it?
Yes.
I mean, that seems to be a real issue.
The government don't build houses in England. They don't build social housing, either private housing and nothing else. If you take, for example, in the last 8 years here in Scotland, we've built 100,000 social houses. And England has built none. None. And that's all part of the difference in the social contract between the Scottish government and the Scottish people and the English government and the English people. If you don't mind, I'll read you a quick short list of some of the things that are different in the social contract between the Scottish government, the Scottish people, and the English government and the English people. Right. For example, 2012 Health and Social Care Act, the English government is no longer responsible for the welfare of the people, the health of the people in England. They're no longer responsible for it. Look it up, right? Now, when we talk about the social charter, right, we get free dental care. We get free eye care. No eye test. We only pay for the frames of our glasses. We don't pay for the eye test. We don't pay for the lenses. We have little to no private sector companies working within our NHS. We get a free baby box. Every child born is presented with a baby box to help through the first 6 years of their life. We don't charge for prescriptions. We have free home care for anybody who requires it, no matter what their age is. Also in the social charter, we've got a preschool childcare of 1,140 hours or 30 hours a week during term time, where our children go to nursery school, right? We have no road tolls, no bridge tolls. We have free travel for the 12 to 22-year-olds. We have free travel for the over 60s. We have no bedroom tax. We have fairer progressive tax system with 5 tax bands, meaning those in the highest tax pay the most, and those in the lowest tax pay less than what they do in our UK. We have a child benefit uplift of £20 a week to try and lift children out of poverty. We have 12 new benefits within the Scottish Social Security system, and the system is built with the welfare of people at its heart rather than driving budgets. Right, we have improved a carers allowance and a top-up for carers here in Scotland, and we also pay young carers who are looking after their parents. Right,
do that.
Where children in care stay in the system till they're 21, and if they go into higher education, they don't pay for higher education because we don't pay for higher education here in Scotland, and they get their living expenses covered. Right.
Evelyn says in the chat, no parking charges in hospitals as well. Sorry.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we'll get there. They also get children in care when they go into their own homes at 21, get 3 years council tax relief to allow them to furnish their home and build a home, right? Which is £3,000. That's a lot of money, So, I mean, that's just a few things. I mean, for example, if we look at healthcare, our nurses don't pay a bursary. Our nurses get their training fully funded. They only have to pay for their living expenses. So, I mean, we could go on, but the main one there is the 2012 Health and Social Care Act, which means the UK government or the Westminster government is no longer responsible for the health and well-being of the people of England and Wales. The rest of this stuff, the social policies that we put in place here are choice. Now, what's interesting about that is Scotland does that on a budget of 41.2 billion to run the whole country. We don't have access to a magic money tree. We don't have access to the treasury.
Nope.
Whereas you guys have got access to all that stuff, but you pay for all the things that I've just said that we don't pay for. It's political choice. No, I'm glad. I hope that me pointing out some of these things and the viewership we've got here will start a pressure group to get the people in England to look at their government and say, hey, if Scotland can do it on 41.2 billion, why can't you do it when you've got access to the treasury?
Well, because we've got to give that money to rich people.
I put on my Jacob Rees-Mogg hat on. Scotland has communism. We don't want communism here. Okay. No, but it's true.
I'm going to say two things. First of all, you're absolutely right. Why can't we have that? And that would benefit our economy. And it's interesting that that doesn't happen. But we also have a lava lamp that we're doing a giveaway for, which is a brilliant segue, Davy, that you just created there. So to anyone listening and watching right now, we're doing a giveaway till midnight tonight. All you have to do is put in the words "All hail the lava lamp" or "Sunday roast" into the comments section, and one person will be picked at random, and you will have a lava lamp sent to you within a week.
So by that you mean the actual comments, right? Not the live chat, just in case anyone starts spamming in the live chat.
Not the live chat, in the actual comments.
We lost David again.
No, we lost David again.
We've lost Scotland.
Who would do it?
Scotland has left the union.
It's left the building.
Just on an extra note, if you're in the live chat and you want us to read one of your messages, feel free to put it into the chat and we'll read it out. Davey, what happened there? Were you freaked out by the lava lamp?
No, I'm sorry about that. As I say, we're having some power problems here. I live in the rural community, you know.
Have you thought about working for the government to lure English people up north?
I wouldn't dream of working for the government. I can't stand that many idiots around me at that one time. But what I do mean is that, hey, you know, when we talk about these things and when we talk about running and doing it, I mean, you'll hear it in your press, doesn't there? Scotland be crap education, Scotland be crap NHS, Scotland be crap this, crap that. Actually, manifestly, our services are so much better. As I say, right now, our A&E are seeing 76% of people in 4 hours. Your A&E didn't do that before the pandemic.
No.
In fact, your A&E performed that bad, they'd scrapped the figures. Public Health England stopped putting out weekly figures. We still put out the weekly figures on how many people attended the A&E and how quickly they were seen.
So I guess then the leading thing from that is, do you think independence is still possible? If you guys can show you're running the government, even without Nicola Sturgeon, do you think that is possible?
This is the wonderful thing about the UK media. Nicola Sturgeon stands down, one politician stands down and the whole train dies. Never heard so much garbage in your life. I've been at this for 25 years and I've been for the rest of my life. We will achieve because 72% of young people want it. And after I shuffle off his coil, that's not going to change. That polling has been consistent since 2014, that 72% of young people want independence. That's an unstoppable train.
Yeah.
Unstoppable.
Done, isn't it? It's the same with rejoining the EU, because that's now at about 64. It depends on the poll that you read, but it's between 54 and 64% say that Brexit is bad and people are looking to rejoin. I'm gonna flip this over to Max. Max, what are your thoughts on those numbers? 75% of youth in Scotland want to separate. 64 to 54% of people in the UK want to go back into the EU.
There's growing support, of course, in Britain, all over the UK to rejoin. People are starting to realise what a disaster Brexit was, and things are not getting any better because they were told, you know, as soon as we leave, things will get better. And of course, a lot of people voted to leave because of issues like austerity. They wanted to give the Tories a bloody nose, and they were hoping that now, you know, things are going to get better after we leave the EU. There's a video I uploaded today. Actually, no, it was yesterday. Whereas a member of the House of Lords on the left, she's a member of the Green Party. Was a member of the Green Party, and she campaigned. She voted for Brexit. I don't know if she campaigned, but she voted for Brexit. And her reasoning was European austerity. And now she's seeing real austerity. and she says we have to cut our losses and get back into the EU. I'd like her to have a chat with Mick Lynch, for example, but more and more people in Britain are realising, look, we have to get back into the EU. Now, when it comes to Scotland, I think Davy hit the nail on the head there. It's more than one person, and of course the media, especially in England, will say, "Oh, it's Nicola Sturgeon is gone. The independence movement has collapsed." Now, I'm not a big fan of polls, but there was a poll I think done just after Nicola Sturgeon resigned or delivered her speech, and I don't know if it was support for the SNP Green government increased. It didn't drop. And that was really surprising, because you think, oh well, once she got out, then that's going to hit the party. It didn't actually. It now you probably find polls to say one thing and say another, but as Davy said, it's more than just one individual. And young people in Scotland are the future, of course. They're going to be they're the voting base, and it's something different about Scotland, I think. And Davy can correct me if I'm wrong here. There's higher turnout of younger people, perhaps, in Scotland than there is in other parts of the UK.
There is Scottish elections and council elections really are a dead donkey. Most people don't bother with them. And in the Scottish government elections, since 16 and 17-year-olds have been given the vote, yes, they do turn out. Not as many as we'd like, but it's much higher proportionally. But you'd have 18 to 25-year-olds in England. Yes, it's true. In our UK, sorry, let's not generalise. To our UK. So because the young people have been in power to vote at 16 years old, they utilise it because they're grown up with the idea that that's when they get a say. So that's so they get their say, and they do utilise it. No in the numbers that we really like. I mean, we talked during the independence, after the independence referendum, did the breakdown. And people were blaming pensioners for vote no and no. But as it turned out, yes, with the one if we're 16 to 25-year-olds just got after PlayStations and went voted. That's the truth of it.
They were trying to unlock Big Maj.
That's it.
That's about it's a difficult game. It's a difficult game to do it.
If they could put in Grand Theft Auto or whatever games they're playing for 20 minutes and nip through the polling station, hey, Scotland already be independent.
It does look like the youth are coming out more and more in politics, though. Even in the States, when you looked at the state, the presidential election, youth groups had a major impact in getting Biden, and in the midterms. And the midterms are normally not that good for youth. For getting them out. So it looks like there's a bit of a change in Western culture. Go on, David.
Do you have a youth parliament in England?
I think so. I remember seeing some. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we do.
I mean, we have a youth parliament sits in our Scottish parliament a couple of times a month, and that's for the views of the young come before.
Can I?
It's interesting.
Can I bring in a question? We have a question.
We got a super chat as well.
Yeah, we got a super chat and a question from I or L. I'm not sure which it is. Does Sturgeon's resignation vindicate Starmer for not supporting her on self-ID? Also, good show, guys. So is Starmer vindicated in some way because he didn't support Sturgeon on the gender recognition bill?
That's a totally stupid question. Starmer would have recognised that there was no impact in it. It was a Scottish bill. He didn't say in it either. Same and all with this idea that there's going to be a Labour.
I've got to defend anyone that asks a question, Davy. I don't think there's anything as such as a stupid question.
Oh, we're losing Davy again.
No, Davy. The ghost of Socrates has come to haunt him, unfortunately. Questions are good. Davy, we totally lost you. You're still there. Can you say it again? No, I think he's gone. Maj, what are your thoughts on that question?
I think, it's a tough one. I think the SNP, the backlash that they got was, I think, a lot higher than they were expecting, because they thought, I think, the bill was going to pass through the Scottish Assembly or the Scottish Parliament, and that would be it. But then the Tories were like, "Nah, we're blocking that one," and then it became, a big national story. And you had the court case with the person who committed multiple crimes against women. And there was, debate over, is she going to women's prison? Is she going into, a men's prison? And I think that's what kind of really tanked it for Sturgeon in terms of the argument over the Gender Recognition Act, because she didn't have a solid answer on it. That was the problem. So I think Starmer probably was vindicated in that sense of he'd also have to answer that question of, what happens.
This stuff about the man being sent to a woman's prison for assessment. That's the UK law that makes that happen. It's called the Equalities Act, 2004.
Yeah, sure. But the issue is if Sturgeon gave that as an answer, if she said, "Look, it's not down to me. It's the UK Recognition Act of 2004," I don't think there would have been an issue. But when she was asked a question about it, she kind of stumbled. She stumbled on the answer.
But the problem is, you don't watch your Parliament. You don't watch your First Minister's question. That question was answered repeatedly in her First Minister's question.
Not in the media, wasn't it? Not when the media asked her. Not when the media asked her. She stumbled on it. She was like, I wasn't sure. She looked uncertain.
When the media asked her, is that a guy or a woman?
Yeah, that was it. She stumbled. She stumbled on her answer. They asked her, should that person be sent to a men's prison or women's prison? She stumbled on her answer. That was the problem.
She stumbled on her answer because the UK Equalities Act says that he had to be sent to a female prison because he identified as a female to be assessed.
That was the point, that if she gave that answer properly, it wouldn't be an issue. But because she stumbled on her answer on a very topic,
answer, it would have been edited out. Because that answer was out there freely to our Parliament when she did First Ministers. And I don't know if you know this, but repeatedly we will have a First Minister's questions rebroadcast up here with replies and things like that edited out from our politicians.
Oh, we're losing Davy.
Oh,
again.
Davy. That was heating up. That was good. That's a shame. Oh, Davy back. No, the internet's gone, unfortunately. Yeah, that's a shame. That was interesting points from both of you. Both on the fact that the media she failed in the media, but it was also that she asked these questions within Parliament.
I find that hard to believe, but that's a fact. People here in Scotland can tell you that in the comments.
Davy, I don't know if you can try to disconnect and reconnect because we can't hear you. If you can hear us, try and disconnect and reconnect. You'll be brought in automatically. But
shall we change tack? So we change tack and
I just want to clarify quickly. It wasn't the fact that her arguments were good or bad. It's the fact that she stumbled when asked the question by the press. That's the problem. If you have the right answer and you don't deliver your answer properly, you look very weak and you look like you don't know what you're talking about. That's one of the things the Tories do well. You ask them a question, they'll give you the most nonsense answer, but they will give it with the utmost confidence that they are correct. If you stumble whilst giving your answer, especially on something where there is so much misinformation, as Killer points out, on Gender Recognition Act, it's a bad look overall. If you have a solid answer and you know exactly what you're going to say, you look very strong and you're very certain in your answer, it's very hard to spin it. But if you stumble, if you stutter, you don't look like you're confident in your answer, especially on a subject so toxic, because certain people have made it toxic. It's not a good look. You don't look very strong as a leader. And that's my point. It's regardless of the situation, it would be up to the prisons, I think, and the courts to figure it out. If she just gave that answer straight away and said, look, it's not up for me, it's up for them, the experts, to deal with this, then it wouldn't be a problem. But she didn't give a strong enough answer, in my opinion. And that's what made her look really bad in the media. And that's one of the things where you can get a lot of party division just off that alone. If you do not give a strong answer and people think you're weak and you don't represent them properly, there's blood in the water at that point and you get a lot of problems. That's the problem.
But I think in her defense, the question was not so much about the prison. It was about whether the individual is a man or a woman. And she, she wasn't in a position to respond to that because it's not related to the topic of sending them to prison.
But I think the question, I think there was the prison context of, well, if that person identifies as a woman, surely that person should go to a female prison. I think that's where it was leading to. And I think they did ask her specifically about the prison as well as to where this person should go. I think that's one of the key issues there. But yeah,
but then the question's designed to be so black and white when there's a nuance.
That's the thing. That's where you say you defer to experts. That's why you defer to experts.
what you would generally want is to attack the question itself and point out the question isn't doing a decent enough job. It's a bit like a surgeon going in with a hacksaw when they need a surgical knife. And I you know, the press will do that on purpose to try and catch you out. And maybe that was it. It just caught her out. And maybe that was part of the reason for her resignation.
It's like Alex, we've lost. Okay. Alex,
we've got a super chat as well.
Alex, when did you stop beating up your wife? You know, if I ask a question like that.
Yeah, that's where you can. That's where you can attack the question, though. But she just didn't do it. That's the problem.
No.
She had options and she didn't take the best one. That was the problem. You know, that's my point against it. It's not what she said. What she said specifically is how she went about answering the question, and that's something where I'm trying to explain it as best I can here. And that's where you can get problems in the party because you've got people like Joanna Cherry who are very much TERFs, and that's a key problem within the party because she's still there. People, you know, certain people are still in the party.
Hey, you. So, I'm gonna, unless Davey, you've got anything else you want to say on that point. And I appreciate the internet's being a bit troublesome. I was going to say, coming into the last part of the show, let's have a look at Northern Ireland and what's going on over there with. Oh, Davey, you're back.
Hopefully this will work better, guys. I've eventually got the link to Alex to come in via my computer. The phone was running a bit flat, and that's why we're getting so many problems.
Look, at the end of the day, all this stuff, where we really get down to the finite details of what's causing all the problems, we know it's Putin. We're saying all the right things. That's why we're getting all the bad luck. I'm going to switch us over onto Northern Ireland for our last bit of topic.
Another part of the union, which is
another part of the union. Yep. Wow. Another controversial topic with there's no answer. Yep. And Sunak's trying to come up with an answer. No. Max.
Wonderful.
To his credit, right? As much as I roast Femi at times, right? You know, he did a little clip on how I'd solve the issues in Northern Ireland. It's him getting hit by like a chair, like a pretend chair, and I was like, that's funny. That's genuinely funny because good luck with answering that, especially if you don't have like a long kind of knowledge of the background of Northern Ireland. Like, don't get involved too much. So much reading, Jesus.
So just to give people a summary, just to give people a quick summary of why there's a problem in Northern Ireland. The DUP campaigned for Brexit, supported Brexit, hoping that it would put a border on the island of Ireland. The UK government and the EU said, no, we're not going to do that because that would require infrastructure, which is against the Good Friday Agreement. So we're going to put the border somewhere else. And the DUP were hoping that they'd be able to twist some arms and get a border put on the island of Ireland anyway. And the UK government said, no, we're going to put it in the Irish Sea between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And the Brexiteers are blaming the EU for that. The EU said, no, if you remain within the single market and the customs union, there's no need for a border. No, we want our Brexit. So when it came to Northern Ireland, or came to Brexit or the union, Brexit won every time. And now what we have is Rishi Sunak, who's following up on the withdrawal agreement, the Northern Ireland Protocol, which his party signed up to. Remember that, the oven-ready deal. They haven't been implementing the oven-ready deal. They agreed to put in infrastructure in Belfast to carry out checks. They were supposed to build permanent infrastructure. I think it was by June or July 2021. They haven't built it yet, as far as I know. It's all just prefabricated buildings. They were supposed to be providing live data back in that date as well, back in 2021 to the EU of goods moving from Great Britain into Northern Ireland. Live data. They've just started doing that. So if you just think about if I said to you, look, I'm going to build you a house, and it's going to be done in like 6 months. And 2.5 years later, it's still not done. You'd be like, okay, maybe you're not very honest. This is the problem. So you have Sunak agreeing. As far as I know, what's going to happen is he's going to agree to do the things that are in the withdrawal agreement, in the Northern Ireland Protocol. But he can't say he's going to do that. He has to pretend that he's getting concessions from the EU over this. So what he's going to do is he's going to try and sell this to the DUP. The DUP wanted a border on the island of Ireland. I'm going all over the place because this is it's a mess.
Yeah.
So the DUP wanted their border in the island of Ireland. They didn't get that. They don't want, now that they have to form an executive, it's like a government in Northern Ireland, they have to go into government with Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin are the biggest party in Northern Ireland, so they would they would be able to appoint the First Minister for the first time. Okay, with caveats, the first time ever. But the DUP don't want that, because they said they would never go into a government if Sinn Féin were the First Minister. So they painted themselves into this corner. And in order to, they can't come out and say, well, we're not going into government with Sinn Féin, even though they're democratically elected. We're not going to say that. Instead, we're using the protocol as an excuse for not doing that. I had a massive rant about this in one of the videos that is dropping today, plug. But it's and this is where we're at. We're at a stage where the UK government is trying to keep the DUP happy by saying, yeah, we'll undo parts of the protocol in order to get them into government with Sinn Féin. And
this will be the fast lanes, Max. The idea of a green lane for goods that are not going any further than Northern Ireland. But what we have in the UK at the moment is a smuggler's paradise, because we're not checking any goods coming in.
Yeah.
The other problem with that is when they did check the goods, you had Phil did a crack one and different bias on this. The border guards decided to check for 1 day, so they stopped 22 food lorries and had to pound 21 of them because the food was rotten, full of maggots, mixed foods and mixed goods on the same motor, which shouldn't have been mixed together and things like that. I mean, we're looking at a healthcare disaster here coming down the line. But more importantly, they don't know what's coming in. I mean, the EU's just fined the UK 40 billion quid for using the EU to smuggle Chinese goods into the UK.
but also, for example, if I'm a business in Italy or in Europe, and I say, look, I have these goods I can't sell here because it's illegal, put them on a truck and send them to the UK.
Yeah,
somebody will take them there, and there won't be any checks, so you can sell them in markets or whatever. Bleach the chicken. Remember bleached chicken?
This has been a historic problem. So this goes back to William Pitt the Younger and tea. Believe it or not, the taxes on tea were so high that people were then starting to smuggle the tea in, and we had the same thing in the late noughties with cigarettes. The taxes went up so high that people started smuggling cigarettes in, but they were crap quality. Same with the tea. This always happens, like in history. Same thing's going to happen now. Well, someone will just import them, and if I was like running a shop and I didn't care about the law, I might consider taking like those cigarettes and just selling them off the shelf. Or same with alcohol. You know, how many police officers are going to go into small corner shops and pubs and check the cigarettes are legal?
Yeah.
Apparently, Gove said that we need 50,000 extra customs officers to do these checks.
No, not needed. He promised to hire them back in 2020.
Oh, he promised?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Six months before the end of the transition period, he said we're going to hire 50,000 customs officers. I don't think they've hired any.
They hired 5,000, Max.
Okay.
Yeah, the issue they had is they deferred to the private sector. So what you had was different firms kind of poaching staff from each other. And charging the government for it, for like recruitment fees and stuff. So that's pretty funny. But they didn't, they didn't put the training in. You know, how do you become a customs officer? You know, if they said, look, we're going to train X amount of people,
2 weeks,
and you funded. Well done, you're a customs officer now. Here's your badge. Here's your little knife to unbox things.
Do I get a taser or a pistol?
No. You just need to unbox things.
1.5 million job vacancies. Unfortunately, 1.5 million job vacancies are nowhere near the centres of population. They're out in the sticks, they're in rural locations. People can't get to them.
So, you're travelling far out to get to these places, and they built like remote facilities almost, like really built up facilities to do the processing for some of this stuff. And they're not used yet, millions of pounds. I think I can't remember how much it was. I think it's nearly 100 million they've spent on these facilities that aren't going to get used.
The ports are suing the government over that as well.
Yeah, it's the councils, I think, as well, because the councils the councils have to pay for it as well, because the idea is the councils make the money back in fees and other things, but it's not going to happen. I do like your best Tony Connolly impression there, Max, of going over the history of the protocol. There, you got to respect that. My man, when he writes an article, it's the history of the protocol. I'm like, oh mate, don't do this. I know the history. Stop doing this. At least put it at the bottom.
It's for the Americans. It's for the Americans.
But it's every time. It's like, those shows that do an episode recap. They're like, oh, this is what's happened in the show this season. I'm like, I don't care. I watched it a minute ago. I watched the last episode. I've seen this. So yeah, he does it. And I respect him because he's very good at his job. But put it at the bottom of the thing, please. Whoever his editors needs to have a word with him. But yeah, it's me criticizing an actual journalist. Yeah, it's going to be a great look there. But yeah, point being with the DUPs, I think if we go back to it, because I had to do something quickly. They really box themselves in with their 7 tests, and they're in big trouble. I think they will hemorrhage votes. They won't be seen as radical enough.
I'm aware of the time. We're in bigger trouble than that. So there's 2 big problems that I'm aware of. One, if we keep letting all these goods in and we're not checking them, we're not charging, we can't just have that with the EU. The WTO will step in eventually, because someone will put a complaint and they'll say, right, if you're going to allow it with the EU, you've got to allow it with everyone else. Or you have to put in regulations with the EU like you do with everyone else. You cannot give preferential treatment, which will be a massive headache. But then on top of that, if we do that and if we don't do that and we just allow all goods in from across the world, we are going to have a collapse, an industrial collapse, because we will not be able to compete. So the other option is, and we know that's a problem because Patrick Minford, the guy that they all refer to as this god of Brexit economics, has said that we should do this and we should allow British industries to collapse, which I don't think a lot of Brits want to have happen. The flip side of that is that you do put these controls in, which means that you've got to get these 50,000 people from nowhere. We don't have them. And then on top of that, and this is the really interesting thing that happened with Honda and Nissan and Ford, all these car companies are leaving. Now, the thing that they're all saying is you need to have infrastructure in this country to develop the products internally. You can't be having it imported. It costs too much. It's too much of a pain in the backside. And then we've got to ship it over into the EU because that's where our market is. And again, it just costs too much. Plus, as I pointed out, we're going to see a huge global change. We're already seeing it. America is isolating itself. The North and the South are going to become isolationist because of what's happening with China. And we can already see that. There's already frictions with war as well. And in Europe, we're going to have a similar problem. And Britain's going to be left in the middle. We do not have the infrastructure. We do not have the capabilities to have a self-isolated Britain, which is producing all manufactured goods internally. It will not happen. We don't have it now. We don't have an industrial strategy to develop that at the moment. This is a 20-year project, and it will cost a bomb to be able to produce. So I don't see how this fixes itself other than going back in the EU. Go on, Davy.
It's interesting you say that, Al, because I've been predicting since 2016 the collapse of the markets here in the UK, and I mean the internal market, because the UK producers we have don't have the capability to produce to serve the internal market. The producers that we did have that have the ability to produce to serve the internal market were actually built to serve the EU market, and now they are no longer serving the EU market. The business owners are going, no profit line and no profit margin here for me. The people in the internal market are suffering from austerity. There's a cost of living crisis. There's an energy crisis. I can't afford to run my business anymore. I'll get out while I can. Mass unemployment is coming.
Where would you, if you were to set up a business, Davy, and you could choose the UK or the EU, which market you're more likely to go for and why?
I would do what AstraZeneca just did. They promised to build a new plant here in the UK and they've moved it to Southern Ireland because they want access to the 450 million customers in the EU.
So then you only have to import. You only have import charges for 60 million instead of 400.
That's right.
That's the thing. I don't see how we can compete with that. Max, sorry, Davey, I'm just aware of the time. Max, your thoughts on that, and then Maj?
Yeah, and then there's also the other problem is that as soon as businesses move, it's a cost to bring them back. So even if the UK were to rejoin the single market, rejoin the EU and the single market tomorrow, a lot of businesses would not come back because there would be a cost and with very little advantage or no advantage. I just want to read out a super chat we received from Son of Viking. Don't tell the DUP, but Brexit excluded Northern Ireland anyway, at least in the minds of those who coined the phrase or the term. Otherwise, it'd be a UKexit. How do you pronounce that? Exit.
Exit.
That's why they didn't call it that, because it's just he doesn't speak properly. I think on that point, they kept saying, when they were asked about the Irish border question, they kept saying, "Oh, we'll have a technological solution," and no one ever asked them, where in the world does it have a technological solution? Not even on the Norwegian border is there a technological solution. They have state of the art gear.
Maj, it did exist in the future.
All right, Max, you get in your time machine, you go into the future, and you bring that technology back here. You bring the technology back here.
I don't see any problem.
You want the technology for a digital border? Go and speak to Amazon.
What you do is you go find Superman, use his X-ray vision on everything coming past, right? And he'll tell you if there's anything dodgy in there. That's the level of conversation.
Doc Brown, you find Doc Brown, and he builds the. He gets a DeLorean. DeLoreans were made in Belfast. There you go. There's problem solved.
Oh, it's all fitting in. It's all.
Yep.
This technology does exist. Amazon use it all the time. When a vehicle's leaving an Amazon depot to go to another Amazon depot, a QR code is put on the side of the vehicle. It says exactly what's in that vehicle. So when it pulls up at the next Amazon depot, they read the QR code and tell them what bay to go to get unloaded. So the tech's there.
But then, if I was being the bad guy, couldn't I just put any QR code on? And I could put whatever I want in the box.
Are you
if I did the big switcheroo?
Dishonest?
No, definitely not.
I'm playing the role of bad guy.
Well, what if?
The reason why it wouldn't work with borders is you see, you go on to the border control, they give you your QR code, you put the QR code on the side of the motor, pull it out the side of the road and swap us in the back of the motor.
That's it, isn't it? Not that we know from first-hand experience at all, being a truck driver. Hey, Davy.
Hey, that's right. Hey.
And we got 4 more minutes from everyone because we started a bit late. We got 4 more minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. I think if we go back to, I think one of the questions I had, which was like the UK and kind of being caught between 2 economic powerhouses in the US. There was an article where in Bloomberg recently where the Sunak's looking to rebuild relationships with the EU because he's scared now that the EU, like you said with the car manufacturing, the EU and the US are looking to bring back a lot of manufacturing, building semiconductors and things like that, right? And something I've kind of mentioned, I think, before here. And the problem is the UK are scared that UK businesses will be kind of excluded from these in terms of procurement and other things. And so it's, Kemi Badenoch, I can't remember how to pronounce her name. She's gone. She's been kind of sent out there instead of looking for new trade deals, the crappy ones that we've got, more of those. She's trying to kind of talk to the US and talk to the EU and saying, please don't exclude our businesses. And Biden, I guarantee you, right? Get this clip, Alex, yeah? The one where Biden, I'll send it to you. It's not in my house, Jack. Not in my house. Yeah, get that one because that's what he's going to say. He's going to say, not in my house, Jack. Get out. And then you're going to say the same. It's like, okay, your opinions are noted. We don't care. See you later, chump. That's what's going to happen. Guarantee you that.
I've got a quick question. I know we've only got 2 minutes left. What was that Italy trade deal thing that she did?
I think
I couldn't see anything that was actually substantial in that deal that gave us anything.
It might be like an investment deal or something, maybe to do with like customs, or because the EU nations have like weird rules around like transport. I think where they all have their own different rule sets, which is bizarre. Right. But they have it, and it's they can run it how they want to. It's a weird system, but it's fine, whatever. But I think it might be something to do with that. I don't know, because the UK signed investment deals with lots of other countries. The other thing the UK is scared of is when it comes to manufacturing weapons and like planes and stuff, we want to be involved in kind of making the planes alongside the EU. So for export, there's like I said, there's some that I think is the Bloomberg article covered it quite well. I'll see if I can find it. I'll send it to you guys.
We're running out of bullets though.
I mean, to be fair,
that's our core thing that you need. We're running out of bullets. What are we going to use? Harsh language?
We'll use BB guns. We'll use airsoft guns. 3D printed. But I was going to say, with that stuff, right? With the UK, like we can't even build ministerial cars anymore. So I don't know how we're going to build, high spec jet, jet bombers and things like that. Given the fact that you're going to have to get those parts into the UK somehow. We either make them here or we get them into the UK somehow. Good luck with that. Best of luck getting that stuff into the UK and then building it. We can't build anything here. That's the problem. And so, some of these parts are going to come from the EU. Some might come from the US, for example. and it's just the supply chain so bogged down right now. Why would the EU want to work with us to build certain things unless we've got the R&D here, unless we've already got the plans here? Why would they want to work with us? Can be like, oh, have you got that plane, mate? It's like, our stuff is stuck in customs in the Netherlands. It'll be built next week, and it's going to look ridiculous.
It's interesting you talk about research and development. Do you know that Scotland still designs most of the world's ships? We don't build them anymore, but we design them at BA and the Nautical College here. But we don't. We sell the designs in the world. We don't build the ships anymore.
Wow.
No,
I didn't know that.
The research and development's here. It's just as you say, the manufacturing capability is not here. It just isn't.
That's what I mean. Like, you know, like you get certain commentators say, oh, we can be a hub for research and development. And you're like, okay, that's great. You can license out designs. But if you actually made the stuff here, you made the products here and then sold it on, you'd make a lot more money, because that's where the real money is. You know, if you design an electric vehicle, for example, you can license out that design. You can make money from that, sure. But if you build the vehicle and you build that for export, you make a lot more than you would otherwise. And that's what's kind of frustrating of these people saying we can be, you know, some sort of, R&D superpower. Is like, first of all, we're at the Horizon program. Secondly, good luck getting the scientists from the EU to come here when a lot of them are left. You know, they've either left to go back to the US or to go to an EU member state. It's just an absolute mess on so many different levels with the UK. And I think, if Scotland does manage to rejoin the EU, I think, you know, in terms of Scottish University, there's some really good ones up there, some really good ones. And they'll benefit massively from the Horizon program. And there'll be a lot of jealousy, I think, in, you know, Oxbridge, because they will not get access to what kind of EU member states get with the Horizon program. Oxford
and Cambridge, and it came out in the news the other day that they reckon they've lost 250 million.
I think
and if you go to Oxford now, Oxford's not looking at its healthiest, and they're normally really robust in a recession. However, on a healthier note, we're out. Yay. We're done.
Are we out of the EU? That happened a couple of years ago. What are we out of?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Great show.
Thanks to our guests. It'd be great to have you guys back once again. We had a very interesting discussion today, and it'd be great to continue it in the future. Sorry about the technical problems, but
can't be helped.
That's
the joys of life.
So I want to say thank you, everyone, and we'll. Alex, do you have anything to say before we finish for today?
If you want to win the lava lamp, just write in the comments section, all hail the lava lamp or Sunday roast, and we'll select a winner. If you're outside the UK, blame Brexit for us not being able to send it to you. That's nothing to do with it. It's entirely Brexit.
If Max somehow wins this lava lamp, I will not be impressed. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. If it's the winner is Mr. Max Robespierre, and I'm like, what the hell is
like
this?
A Father Ted episode.
I
was holding up number 11. Sorry, Ted.
The winner is this Alex guy. Oh, Political X. Oh, he's the winner now. He's got 2 lava lamps. So if you see him with 2 lava lamps, right, know something has gone very wrong here.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a great Sunday.